Thank you for coming. I'm Dr. Jeff Nickel. I have Gaston and I have Tony. He's sort of hiding over here. They're eating from their little indoor hunting feeders. You keep these guys occupied being real cats. Well, this is about, child safety with cats. I did a Facebook Live a few months ago on aggression with cats directed toward people, family members. But this time I want to talk specifically about children because, well, of course they're more vulnerable. We naturally, whether they're our children, relatives, or friends' children, we need to be protective of them, and it comes kind of innately to most of us. Well, here's why it's so important and so different. Because children tend to be, kind of scary. They do things that are unexpected. And if you're a cat who's lived with adults and these little rascals do stuff that all of a sudden comes out of the blue, they can be a little worried. I wonder if you ever remember the first time you got a real lesson in what the expression quick as a cat means. Well, I remember that when I was a kid, and not only was it painful, but it was astonishing, rude surprise. And we don't want our kids to have to experience that. And if we have a cat we love, we want to bring out the best. And so there's some ways of doing it, and I'm going to share those with you. So, in case we haven't met, again, I'm a veterinarian. I'm Dr. Jeff Nickel. I am residency trained in veterinary behavior medicine. And after many, many years of general practice, illnesses and injuries of cats and dogs, I now have my practice limited to behavior disorders, but there is a great deal of information that I study about other organ systems because they can play a part in behavior, and we'll touch on that with cats. I do have a border collie here. Her name is Miss America, and she's here because, well, she's here pretty much all the time. She needs to be part of these things. Okay, so, yeah, we love our cats, don't we? I mean, these little guys mean a great deal to us, and I want to bring out their best, and I want to protect them too. I don't want them to get into situations where they might, cause a problem. So, Desiree, thank you for coming. I hope this is valuable to you. So, anyways, these cats are different. I mean, they're like us. Everybody's an individual. Gaston, the little fuzzy white guy, tends to startle easily. We got him as a baby. In fact, both of these little guys came to us as kittens. And he's just naturally kind of skittish. And when I want him to come to me and share some affection, I sit or even get down on the floor, and with his perception being that I'm smaller, he is much less prone to get wiggy and freak out. Tony, on the other hand, nothing ever bothers this guy. Loud noises, sudden movements, the garage door going up, nothing seems to faze him. And you don't have to sit down, squat down, and they're just different. And so your cats are different as well. And it's important to try to tailor the way you manage your cats based on who they are. And you'd be impressed the number of people who, well, they recognize how they are and they want the pet to conform to their own personality. And it's just like getting along well with somebody else in your life who's important to you. If you're going to have a good marriage or a great friendship or get along well with people in the workplace, you have to look at, well, who they are and try to adjust and adapt so that you bring out the best in everybody. Same is true with cats. So what I've got is a situation where I want these cats to be well treated by children as well. So if I've got children around, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the child sit very quietly and offer food to a cat who I've intentionally delayed their meal just a little so the cat's food motivated and is interested in coming to the child to get that resource. And I got another comment here. Oh, Lion, my 16-year-old cat meows a lot lately. Is this his age? Does anybody mind if I digress on this? Because this is a really valuable question. And we'll get back to cats and kids. I welcome interruptions, by the way. So you've got a cat who's 16 years old. I'm sure your name is probably pronounced Leon, right? Anyway, sorry. Cats that age, actually cats over age 10, are at a 30% risk of benign tumors of their thyroid glands. And in fact, Tony here, who's 13, I have recently picked that up on his routine blood work. Well, it's not a disaster. There are several good treatments for it, and actually the very best is radioactive iodine that's given once by injection. They're hospitalized for about 4 days so they can eliminate that, and the thyroid gland picks up all of the iodine that's in the body, and that eliminates the excess thyroid tissue, and it typically is a cure. And the cat who vocalizes a lot may be hyperthyroid, and it's very simple for your veterinarian to do a routine blood test to pick it up. Now, there are other causes of that excessive vocalization. Other tip-offs for hyperthyroidism, for example, are a cat with a growing appetite in the face of weight loss. A few of them will get hyperactive and restless and agitated. So if you've got those kinds of things going, you're at a greater suspicion of hyperthyroidism in that elderly kitty. But if the lab work looks fine, you may have a problem with dementia, which in cats and dogs we call cognitive dysfunction syndrome, very similar to Alzheimer's in people. And there are some great treatments for that. And by the way, that's actually another. Carolyn, would you mind making a note? And we should do a Facebook Live on cognitive dysfunction in cats and dogs, because it's as common as it is. But in any case, let's get your cat blood tested. And the lab profile should include kidney and liver tests as well. And just make sure everything is okay. Because some cats who are complaining and crying a lot, they're in pain. So let me move on with this, because we're going to bring this pain thing up in a minute with children and cats. So if you have children, you've got to be watching them. You have absolutely must be supervising, whether it's a cat or a dog, within arm's reach. So I'd like to read you the history of a particular case here. This is a pet that I saw in the exam room, and I got a real clear idea what was going on because these folks showed me a video of what was going on. So let me just read this to you. This cat's name was, I'm calling this cat Chablis, but it's not really his name. Anyway, 4-month-old male kitten. Excuse me, gentlemen. Does somebody need to play with a predatory toy? It seems like that would be necessary for you, my little fuzzy friend. Anyway, bad behavior between siblings here. All right, so here's Chablis, 4 months old when he was brought in to see me. Just a typical little mixed bred fuzzy gray kitty. And they'd had him for about 4 weeks, and he was exclusively indoors. And that's an important part of this thing. It was a family with a couple of young children. One was only about 4 years old. So the presenting complaint was that he was biting and scratching at the children and attacking. And people use that term rather loosely. If you saw the video, this cat was really attacking the small child, and it was pretty unsettling to watch. So here's what, excuse me, Gaston, do we have another toy for Gaston, Carolyn, that maybe fill it a little bit more with the treats there so that we don't have this competition between these two boys? Gentlemen. Okay, anyway, more treats are coming, boys. So he attacks all of us. He will attack from behind while we're walking, sinking his teeth into our calves and grabbing, here, thank you very much. Here, Tony, come on over here, baby. There you go. Now, Gaston, here. You know, we need more treats. Yeah, thank you. All right, we'll keep these guys occupied. He will attack us from behind while we're walking, sinking his teeth into our calves and grabbing our calves with his paws, and claws. He will also attack from the front, almost standing on his hind legs with his front paws outreached. He'll attack us anywhere on our body. He will also attack our forearms, wrapping all of his claws, with his claws out and extended, thank you, around our forearms and biting our hands and wrists. Now this is what cats do when they're in a predatory emotional state. They, when they catch a rodent or a rabbit or something, they'll wrap all 4 limbs around them and dig with their back legs and sink their teeth in. That's what they're supposed to do. Cats are predators, and the tendency is to punish this behavior, and it is completely natural, although entirely inappropriate toward the humans. So we've got to get the cat's needs met, okay? and everybody else is too. So our 2-year-old child gets the brunt because he's so low to the ground. And Chablis will scratch his face and neck and attack his whole body. He attacks the child's head. When the bigger kids are low to the ground, he'll more likely to attack them. Well, they're smaller and they seem more like prey. He'll hide and do surprise attacks, but he's more likely to just attack without coming from a hiding place. Sometimes he'll arch his back and come at us sideways, but other times he won't do that before an attack. He can also be very cuddly, lying on us in complete relaxation and sleeping for hours at a time. And he does this with the grown-ups almost daily and with a 9-year-old occasionally. We've tried spraying him with water. We hear that a lot. I tell you what, there is one excellent reason to spray a cat with water, and that's if he catches fire. Otherwise, what you tend to do is take a cat who's agitated and reactive and ratchet him up even higher. And they can learn with repetition that the context of being near the children or whatever else is triggering the cat's aggression to have even a greater intensity of tension and behavioral arousal. And we're actually racing down the wrong path. So we do not spray with water. We don't yell. We don't swat. I'll get to what we really should do here in just a minute. So then we tried meowing and saying ouch when he attacked us. I wouldn't count on that making a real difference. Now we yell to interrupt the behavior before it escalates. And of course they're startling him out of it, which in the near term, in the immediate sense, that seems to help. But again, long term, they just learn to associate even more intensity with these situations, with children in this case. We've bought a variety of toys and we rotate them and we leash and harness him so he can go outside with us. We try to have an extended play session with him twice a day with a variety of wand toys. Really good idea. And we put him in a room and withdraw attention when he's attacking us. And that's actually one of the very best ideas. And so my advice to these folks was, he's the only pet in the home, and he's an inveterate predator simply because he's a cat, and he needs to attack something that has a pulse. But he also has social needs. And so if he had another kitten, not an adult cat, but another kitten who was also, a little wild child as well, then they can wrestle and play and learn from each other how to respect boundaries, how to play appropriately, and get some healthy, appropriate exercise beyond the social contact. And then they can get involved with a predatory toy like, feathers on a stick, this kind of thing, where they, sorry, Tony, I got you discombobulated there, where they can go after this sort of thing, or what Gaston is doing right here with this excellent indoor hunting feeder toy. You can find these online. He's working loose the dry food that we put in it. So, and in terms of when it occurs, because it probably will happen again, the most important thing they can do is recognize it early and completely ignore. Stand up and leave. If the cat's in your lap, then you should, thank you for the hearts, by the way. If this is coming through loud and clear, maybe hit the hearts just so that I know that. And if you like what I'm doing for you to help you out here, hit the wow button. So if you completely ignore, ideally at the earliest indicator of a problem, stand up and walk away, then you've ended the interaction. And, it's going to be a lot more effective if you do it before the cat is highly agitated. And repeat and do it that way every time. So I told them to do that. I told them to enrich Chablis' indoor environment with floor-to-ceiling cat trees located against a window, suction cup. There are bird feeders and bird houses that are meant for this purpose. Suction cup to the outside of the window so the cat can see the birds, and they will be in a predatory mindset and get that need largely satisfied. And then feed them exclusively from food dispensing toys and puzzles, and there are plenty of them. But you notice the way Gaston here, he just dumped over this little indoor hunting feeder that's intended to look something like a mouse. And actually, it is sort of mouse-like. Anyway, he's figuring it out. He's using his head to figure out how to get some food out of this mouse. So, anyway, that was a different kind of a thing. But it's an important one to recognize. You just don't interact with a cat in that mindset. And you, when they put him in another room to let him cool down, that's really pretty valuable. All right. So, the best thing that a child can do is not to approach a cat. but to lure the cat to them. Again, food's a great way to do it. Be very quiet and invite the cat. And if the cat does not come, there may be an important reason. Maybe the cat just doesn't feel like it at that point. But we have found, just to give you an example, we do these Facebook Live events here in my upstairs office in our house. And these cats and Miss America, our Border Collie, are so accustomed to getting pets and treats and enjoyable things like what Gaston is doing now that they want to show up in this room every chance they get. And if I leave the door open, I'll find them both camped out here on my writing table, just relaxed and hoping something good will occur. And so if you've got a place in your house where those kinds of quiet and relaxed and enjoyable events are predictable for the cat, and then you put the child in that place and give the child something to use to lure the cat, it's really going to make a difference. Now, kids want to pet cats. I mean, they're beautiful, they're fuzzy, and they're little snuggle bunnies, and they're not supposed to grab them anywhere. When a cat rolls over on its back, for example, people think it wants a tummy rub. Cats never rub each other's tummies. If we study their behavior in a free-living colony to understand how they truly need to and want to interact, we find that the mutual grooming between cats is around the head and the neck and the shoulders. Whoa! And so we've got an indoor hunting feeder on the floor. Can you load another one, Carolyn? Here, let me hand you this one. There you go. Thank you. Tony's getting the dry food off the floor now. So cats know they don't rub each other's tummies. And when they roll over on their backs, that's actually a defensive posture. And if you reach into the middle of their abdomen, you have 30 teeth and 18 claws that can be wrapped around and sunk into that child's arm. And so a child can learn that this particular creature is different than a dog or another person, and they can learn some empathy for somebody who's different. They're going to have friends in school who are different. Not only might they be different races, for example, but they might be kids who have challenges or disabilities or behave differently. And if we can teach our children to recognize, okay, there's a difference, and I can allow for that, and I can accept that, and I can work with it. Well, cats are a great model for that. So, pet cats around their head and their neck and their shoulders, because that's where they like it. And that cat will say, when I'm with this child in this location where good things always happen, and there might be a little indoor hunting feeder or some other little food source, then just like my upstairs office here, that cat can learn that, nice things always happen here with this little person, and the cat comes to the child. And that's really key to this whole thing. So, what if the child gets hurt? Well, they're going to cry out, and we all feel bad, but that cat needs to be ignored. So what if you have a cat who has a long history of actually doing quite well with people, including children, and then doesn't anymore? What's changed? Well, it might be a behavioral brain change because of dementia, for example, but in some cases cats get uncomfortable, and they don't have to be elderly to have joint pain. And in fact, a cat of almost any age can start having uncomfortable, itchy skin, or even painful skin. You might have seen cats who lick furiously at the underside of their lower abdomen, the inner aspects of their front, very often their rear legs. Cats whose skin ripples occasionally, or they jump up and race across the room like they were shot from a cannon. These cats are uncomfortable, and they need to see their doctor. Many general practicing veterinarians believe that these are symptoms of anxiety, but 85% of those, we have a very strong research study on that, are cats with skin problems. And you don't necessarily see it by inspecting the skin, even under a good light. And in fact, many times a veterinarian will do a skin scraping and look for mange mites, very appropriate, and sometimes not find them. We have such excellent and safe treatments for skin mange now that we typically treat the cat to make sure that it's ruled out of the list of possibilities. And the truth is that once we've ruled out most everything else, we find that many of these cats are allergic, and they very often respond very, very well to safe medications to make them feel better. And then they start behaving better because they're not miserable. Many of them, because they have learned from repetition to associate discomfort with being touched, then when somebody comes toward them, or even if they're in a child's lap and the child starts to pet them, they immediately react because they anticipate the discomfort. So if that cat has a good history and is not behaving properly anymore, needs to see a veterinarian, and if the general practitioner is struggling to find the answer, these things can be complicated, ask for a referral to a veterinary dermatologist and rule that out before we call it behavioral. In a behavioral specialty practice, frankly, very often general practitioners refer cases to me, and the first thing I'm doing is going through the medical history, my physical exam, the lab profile, and looking for anything physical outside the brain that might be involved. Get those off the list before I put the label behavior problem, and then I go through and start making diagnoses of what's going on behaviorally and develop a treatment plan. But other physical organ systems, including the skin and the joints, with a cat who's got a history of aggression, right there at the top of the list. If you've got a miserable cat, we need to help him feel better and set him up for success, or her. So I guess, the bottom line is that if you have a situation that you can avoid to prevent the problem, don't try to require a cat to behave in situations where it's really hard or impossible. Set the cat up for success, and use the opportunity to teach your child kindness and empathy so they can say, okay, this cat's different. It's not a dog with short ears and a round head. They are behaviorally hardwired differently, and between every cat, they're no two alike, just like people. They're all different. Is there another question here? I think that's it. Anybody can relate to this stuff? If anybody says, gee, I've seen that happen, and I want to see things differently. And back to this question that Leon asked about this 16-year-old cat who is vocalizing and meowing so much at a time. Pain can be a part of that, but cats like that tend to be kind of irritable. And so if you've got a cat who's acting agitated, then I wouldn't allow that cat to enjoy children. We talk about how to prevent aggressive events with dogs and cats towards children or adults, or towards other pets. And honestly, in some cases, the only good way to success is don't allow these situations to develop. And so, if you have to have a cat become an outdoor kitty, the last thing we want to do is rehome them and put them in a different household, because they go through such tremendous stress when they lose their bonds and their home. That's setting them up for failure. In almost every case, we can find a way to say, okay, we've got a situation that does not work. How will we restructure our management of the comings and goings of the family and the pets so that everybody stays out of each other's way? Or in just certain circumstances, they're allowed together, and others we don't. You don't have to try to make a success of everything. You sort of pick your battles. So, thank you for tuning in. I hope this information about cats and child safety was helpful to you. And if any questions come up, I encourage you to go to my Facebook page and send me your question. It can be on anything pet related. And if you'd like to get these Facebook Lives every week, along with my media blog, which shows up in the Albuquerque Journal, I put this stuff out. It'll land in your mailbox, your email box, on Tuesday mornings. And all you have to do is go to my website, which is Dr. Jeff Nicol, DrJeffNichol.com. And it costs nothing to subscribe, and when you do, I'll send you my free at-home pet first aid and CPR guide. And every week you'll get this stuff that I hope is helpful. So thank you again, and thank you for the hearts. That makes it clear to me that actually, you can hear this thing, and I haven't done something that's, where you have to learn to read lips in order to see what I'm saying. So thank you again, and I hope everybody has a great evening. And I'll be back next Wednesday at 6 o'clock Mountain Time. And I'm planning to do something next time on pets who are, let's see, do I have a topic? Yeah, dogs who compete for attention with their people. Many people call this jealousy. That's actually a human ego-based emotion. when dogs compete with each other for a person's attention, they're competing for what they consider to be a scarce, high-value resource, like love and affection is limited at your house. Well, of course it is not, but your dog is sure that it is. And we'll talk about why this happens and effective ways of managing it that does not inflame agitation between the dogs, and which actually could set them up to fight together. We can manage this problem effectively in almost every case. So if you have dogs, 2 dogs or more who are competing, tune in next week, Wednesday evening, 6 o'clock Mountain Time. And thank you, and I hope you all have a great week. And you're very welcome, Leon. I hope that's valuable.